by going through today's agenda. As you saw in the email, we're going to talk about the new subscription levels, Travel Ledger Pay, and the fact that it's now going into general availability. And also then we'll talk about Travel Ledger Premium, our new subscription level. And hopefully we'll have a little bit of time for Q&A. Now, there's a lot to cover today. The intention is to give you an overview of what is happening and some of the changes that are coming. Obviously, if you want afterwards, we can have a kind of more one-to-one meetings to go more into the detail. So, don't worry about if today I'm not necessarily going to go through, absolutely every single detail. As I said, otherwise we're not going to have the time. At the same time, please feel free to post queries in chat as we go along. Obviously, we'll try to either answer them as we go along, or we'll just keep them for the end. Okay, so first of all, we'll talk a little bit about the new subscription levels. So as you know, Travel Ledger has been mostly free for buyers since we launched. We've introduced now different subscription level depending on functionality, but the most important thing is we're still going to have a basic product that is going to remain free for the companies that primarily use the portal to access Travel Ledger. So they kind of accept and reconcile the transactions online. They get the email notifications of when they need to pay, how much they need to pay, and where the payments are basically processed by direct debits, like ABTA and CAPS do today. So for kind of basic usage of the platform, it will continue to be a free service. Then we've introduced what we call the Pro subscription. The Pro is more for those companies that need to export data, use Excel upload. They want to export data into their back office system. They want to automate some of the processes by uploading information via FTP, or they want to integrate much more with Travel Ledger. This is also the level that suppliers participate in. Obviously, suppliers upload data, so they need all the additional functionality. Plus, there is the transaction fees for all the transactions that you load, and that's what we're now calling the supplier data exchange fees. We've introduced a little bit of changes in there as well, in the sense that now there's a volume element to it. So the more transactions are uploaded and processed, the lower the cost per transaction. But basically, the Pro subscription is the product that say suppliers and the more advanced buyers will move to in order to manage large volumes of data or integrate with their back office systems. Then the third level, which I will cover at the end, I'll just give you a quick introduction now, but as I said, I'll talk a little bit more later on in the agenda, is Premium. And Premium, it's a slightly different kind of product that includes all the functionality of Pro, but in addition to it, it provides supply chain failure cover. So basically, if either a buyer or a seller experiences a failure event, all the transactions that are filed under Premium are actually covered by an umbrella insurance that Travel Ledger has put in place. So we're kind of moving in the direction of offering kind of add-on products and additional services to those companies that might be interested. As I said, I'll cover that kind of in the second part of the presentation, but just so that everybody understands that that there are multiple options now that will become available. So these are already in place, these new subscription levels. We're in the process of releasing to everyone, and you will see coming towards the middle of this month, the ability to choose which participation level you will be at. At the moment, you have not been asked to choose your subscription level, but as I said, middle of the month, you will see that as you log on, your admin users will be asked to choose specifically, which subscription level you want to use going forward. The second topic for today is around TLPay and the TLPay accounts. So let's start by looking at, what is TLPay? TLPay, I know we talked about it a little bit before with some of you who might already been in some of the presentations I've given in the past. But to reiterate again, TLPay is a digital banking platform that is fully integrated with Travel Ledger. And that allows for the settlement to be direct between buyers and suppliers. Today, you all go through either the Apta Bank account or the Advantage Bank account. You were using direct debits to do all the settlements. TLPay will basically allow the settlement to take place directly between the parties. And I have a little diagram in the next slide that actually explains that in a little bit more detail, which we'll see in a second. So TLPay is this digital banking platform that we've been integrating over the last few months, and that is now, if you like, an integral part of the Travel Ledger platform, and it's accessible through your, it will be accessible once you sign up through your Travel Ledger account. Now, a TLPay account, so the account itself is basically a unique bank account that is assigned to each company on Travel Ledger. So if you decide to use this facility in order to settle between suppliers and buyers, then you will basically be given the equivalent of your own bank account. The difference with a traditional bank account is that TLPay can be used only to settle Travel Ledger transactions. So although it operates like a traditional bank account, it can actually only be used to settle transactions that have been validated and filed between platform participants. So the way it works actually is similar in concept to PayPal or Revolut. I'm sure most of you would have used a PayPal account where the funds are actually going into the Travel Ledger Pay account. They are in your own company account, the TLPay account. And when you start to move funds through that account, payments are received instantly. So payments take place instantly. And because one of the objectives of this is actually to streamline and reduce the time that it takes for money to move around. And we'll see what are some of the benefits that brings. One very key point is that Travel Ledger Pay accounts are safe and secure. We work with the third-party companies that provides us all the underlying banking services and the connection into the banks. But most importantly, the funds are actually held in a top-tier bank. Companies like banks like Clearbank, JP Morgan, Bank of Lithuania, we will be offering multiple currencies. Again, we will provide you more details as time goes by of exactly all the facilities that will be available through the accounts. But the key point is that these accounts are so-called safeguarded, which means that the funds are actually protected 100%. In a way, you can compare this almost to a trust account. I know, in travel, we've been hearing about trust accounts for a long time, but basically they are funds that are ring-fenced and are in your name. And even if the bank was to fail, let's say, for example, that there is a bank failure per se, actually those funds are still protected and ring-fenced under your name, which is even better in a way than some of the protections that you get from a traditional high street bank, where, as you know, there's only a limited protection for the funds that they actually have in a bank account. So this is comparable in a way to a trust account where the money is actually held specifically for you in a safe place. So what are the differences in practical terms between Travel Ledger Pay and, let's say, today's direct debit, which is the only the only way that Travel Ledger supported up until now and what you've been using? As you know, the way it works is in a direct debit environment, the funds are taken from the agent. They go into either the Apta bank account or the Advantage bank account, but it takes actually 3 days for those funds to be cleared and to go from the bank account of the agent to the bank account of Apta. And then on the other side, when Apta disperses the funds, it actually again takes another 3 days for the funds to be fully cleared and reach the supplier in a way that the funds cannot be potentially pulled back, or there aren't any clawbacks that can be done. So it's a clunky system, direct debit, because it requires, you know, mandates to be signed and all these other things. But most importantly, is actually very slow. In a TL Pay environment, the way it works is that is the agent that needs to fund the account, the Travel Ledger Pay account, their own account on the Travel Ledger platform. And if you're using something like Baxit or FastPay in the UK, you know that in 5 minutes you send a wire transfer and the money is in the receiving account. So you'll be able to see the money going from your traditional bank account into a TL Pay account. And then when the settlement takes place, the funds move instantly into the account of the supplier. And those are clear funds. The supplier then receives all the funds for all the agents in their TL Pay account, and they can withdraw those funds directly into their, let's say, traditional bank account. So, you know, as you roughly compare, you know, the top diagram to the bottom diagram, you can see immediately that actually there's a considerable reduction in the time that it takes for the funds to reach the supplier once they leave the bank account of the agent. So why are we introducing TL Pay? As I said, the settlement times are going to be cut by at least 50%. Obviously, you know, there might be commercial agreements why sometimes the funds, you know, take a little bit longer to reach you, but in a kind of a optimal, streamlined environment, you know, you'll get your money 50% faster, the suppliers. Buyers will save on bank charges because, you know, if you were, for example, to pay 20 suppliers by a bank, when you compare it to just paying suppliers by the bank, you do a single fund transfer into your TL Pay account, and then the funds are all dispersed from there. And also because the timing is much shorter, you know, buyers actually get to keep their funds for longer and supplier gets their money faster. We've speaking to a couple of suppliers, we've been, we learned that some suppliers are actually now, because of the time that it takes the funds to reach them, and those suppliers then need to send the money on to their own suppliers abroad, some tour operators had to start collecting money a little bit earlier so that they could get the clear funds to then, you know, forward the funds to whoever they need to forward it. So in this case, by settling, by shortening the settlement, then as a buyer, you'll be able to basically keep the funds, you know, 1 or 2 days longer, at least, you know, in relation to the way it works today. And most importantly, from a buyer perspective, the same applies with you receiving refunds. You know that now if you are in a net a kind of refund position with a specific supplier, you have to wait for the funds to clear and you get your refunds a few days later. In this scenario, you will also get your refunds in a much faster way. There are also a number of other practical benefits that, you know, I'm not going to go necessarily into it when it comes to interfacing with systems and being able to receive the remittances before the new statements go out, before the new cycle starts. You know, there are a lot of other practical ones, but probably what for us is the biggest change is that now TL Pay can be used by any UK and EU travel company. Today, all of you, you're either part of the ABTA scheme or the Advantage scheme, but you can only kind of operate within and settle within those schemes. TL Pay will be available to any travel company in the UK and the EU. What that means is that now you will be able to settle with companies that are non-ABTA members or non-Advantage members. And as we know, especially suppliers, there are a number of suppliers that are non-ABTA members because of the nature of the business, and some of the OTAs, some of the online companies, you know, might not be ABTA members. And so this was all about being able to reach really any company and any of your business partners. We have had many conversations over the last few months with both suppliers and buyers and saying, hey, now I can work with, 40%, 50%, 60% of my business partners, or I would love to be able to work with 100% of them. Now, the introduction of TL Pay allows for now that to be possible. So you will be able to invite any of your business partners to join Travel Ledger, open their own TL Pay account, and be able to settle with you either as a buyer or as a seller. Now, TL Pay, as I said, it's a digital banking facility that is integrated onto the Travel Ledger platform, but it still relies on the banking infrastructure in order for the funds to actually move. Because, as I said, the funds are actually still in a bank account, be that JP Morgan or depending on the currency, whatever those funds reside, which means that TL Pay in itself will actually have some small banking related charges. More specifically, where there's going to be a account opening charge, which is just as a one-off of £90 to actually open an account. Every time you deposit funds, there's no charges. All the deposits are free. Obviously, you need to pay whatever banking charge your traditional bank charges you to actually move funds into another UK bank account, because obviously for you, all of these will be local payments. So we are connected to Bax, FastPay, all the facility available in the UK. And if you need to withdraw funds, there's a withdrawal charge of 40 pence per withdrawal. That is when you use either Bax, SEPA, or ACH, which are kind of the standard platforms. If you need to use something different like Swift, then it's slightly different, because obviously those attract additional charges. So very similar to the charges that you would normally get in a normal bank account. From that perspective, we're accessing and using the same underlying networks. So that there's not a big difference. And then for any payments that takes place on the platform, so let's say, for example, that you're a buyer and you make a fund transfer, you fund your digital bank account on Travel Ledger, and you need to pay 10 suppliers that week. Then for every supplier that you pay through the Travel Ledger pay platform. So for any TL Pay to TL Pay fund transfer or platform payment, there's 25 pence to pay. So in that case, if in a week you pay 10 suppliers, it will just cost you £2.50 to pay all of the suppliers. So obviously, as I said, TL Pay is not a mandatory product, but for those of you that will decide it's available. We've been working on it, and we have been testing and all of that over the last few months. But what happens now? The rollout is going to be gradual, okay? We're not going to do it all in one go, but starting in July, we already started, we'll onboard a few initial sellers that are transacting with some non-APTA buyers. So some of the existing suppliers that use Travel Ledger are now coming on board, and it will start to onboard some of the non-APTA buyers. So that will be kind of the first few interactions in July. In August, we will open onboarding to all existing Travel Ledger companies. So what it means is that in August, there will be some email communication going out to say, okay, now we want to start onboarding more and more companies, and your admin user will get the invite, will get all the additional information so that you can decide if it is something for you or not. And also, as we have new sellers, new non-APTA and non-Advantage suppliers coming on board, they will start inviting you to using TL Pay, and Travel Ledger will also send you new notifications to say, hey, now this supplier is on board. You can pay them through Travel Ledger, and you can start that process. Now, obviously, because these are new suppliers coming on board, as I said, this process will be gradual. To begin with, you might use TL Pay for very few suppliers, and then over time, that will grow. Also, one of the reasons why we want to say, start, in August, we will invite everyone, is because opening a Travel Ledger Pay account is actually the equivalent of opening a bank account. So it doesn't quite happen kind of instantly, if you like. There will be a simple online form that you will need to fill in to provide your company details, some of the company's house details and stuff like that. So there's a main form that you will need to fill in, and then the system will automatically do all the checks that it needs to do in the background. And for a simple limited company, it will probably take a day or two, or if you're very, very simple, where you're a limited company, with a couple of the UK directors, it can actually happen instantly, almost instantly, because all of the checks can be done digitally. But otherwise, if there are a couple of things that our compliance team needs to check, you will get the account in a day or two. If you are a large international company where, owned by a global company or something like that, it will take a few days, or even, maybe up to a week to do all of those checks. So my recommendation is get on board early, and because I said, it will take a few days for your account to become fully operational once you apply for it, basically. Now, we're also, in order to speed up this process, we're actually putting in place a promotion that basically says, if you open your TL Pay account by August 30th, it will be completely free. As we said in the previous slide, there's normally an opening fee of £90 to cover all of the expenses behind the scene to actually open the account. But if you do it before August 30th, Travel Ledger will waive all of those fees. And because TLPay is only charged on usage, okay, there is no risk or cost for you to open an account earlier. You might be that you open the account at the beginning of August, and maybe the 3 or 4 suppliers that you're particularly interested in, might come on board towards the end of August or early September. It's fine for you to have that account there ready to go. It's not going to cost you anything. Okay. So my recommendation is, again, get on board early. Start putting your application at the beginning of August. Is not going to cost you anything. And to begin with, okay, TLPay will be required only to pay non-ABTA and non-advantage suppliers. The current schemes, the ABTA scheme, the advantage scheme, all of these things still will continue to be in existence until such time as potentially something will change. And I mentioned it in some of these webinars before. We already know that ABTA is actually already actively considering migrating to TLPay by the end of the year. I said that there will be an official communication coming out soon, but we know already that there will be some schemes migrating to TLPay because of all the benefits that I mentioned earlier. Settlement is faster. It's just going to bring a variety of benefits to everybody involved. But for the time being, I can tell you it's not going to happen in August. It's not going to happen in September. So for the time being, everything stays the same. There's no need, nothing changes per se until such time as you will receive specific communication. But as you see new non-ABTA suppliers and non-advantage suppliers coming on board, or even international suppliers coming on board, if you're interested in settling with them, you'll need to open a TLPay account. Right, that was TLPay. I know a lot of information to digest. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about premium. Now, what is premium? As I said earlier, it's the new kind of product, new subscription level offered, and that is actually primarily designed for suppliers. And for those suppliers that want to protect the supply chain and their pipeline money against a potential failure. Now, although it's specifically directed to suppliers, actually premium not only protects the supplier against a possible agent failure, but actually also protects the agent from the supplier failure. So it actually is a protection both ways, which is why we feel is actually quite attractive, because it goes there to cover those situations where maybe there aren't any other schemes or any other cover available. As we know, over the last couple of years, with everything that has happened with COVID and all of that, some insurance companies are a little bit shy of protecting travel. So this is where Travel Ledger has actually negotiated with an insurance an umbrella contract that covers all of our customers that decide to upgrade to the premium level. Now, so what are the characteristics of the product and of the cover that we're going to offer? First of all, any market where Travel Ledger is available and where we have participant on board is covered. So means it's a global coverage, any markets. And as you know, we're now expanding into Europe and into other markets. So if you're selling internationally, that will also cover your international customers. Obviously, it only covers companies that are registered on Travel Ledger. So that only the transactions that go through Travel Ledger are covered. If you sell to a buyer and that buyer goes into liquidation, then obviously those transactions are not going to be covered, because the cover starts the moment the transaction is filed via Travel Ledger. So that means that only the bookings that are filed and collected on Travel Ledger are covered. The cover will come into effect only when there is an insolvency. So only when there is a failure. If somebody says, "Oh, I'm not going to pay that booking because I have a dispute," then obviously that is not a, it's not a failure. It's not a failure of payment. It's only in extreme cases where there is a failure or an insolvency. And like any insurance, the general conditions are that, if there is a way to mitigate losses, obviously the insured party has to do everything they can to mitigate losses. So, for example, if a buyer was to go into liquidation before, and the booking could be cancelled to reduce the exposure, then you will have to cancel the booking in order to mitigate the loss. But we also understand that there are some situations, like, for example, which is an ATOL booking, that if you are an ATOL holder and your agent goes out of business, you're still, regardless of what the situation is with the ultimate supplier, even if you could cancel the booking to kind of mitigate your loss, the reality of the ATOL regulation is you can't, because you still have to provide the service. So in that case, the cover will be affected. So we'll make available on our website actually the full detail of the cover. So you can you'll be able to go and see, all the T's and C's and all the details of that. But to give you an idea that we believe we've actually thought this through, and the cover is quite extensive for travel. In fact, we worked with the insurer to put in place a product very specific for the travel industry. This product didn't exist, which is why it actually took us a while to negotiate it and go through it with the insurer. So premium, what does it include? This is the other element that is slightly different from the other subscription levels, is that if you sign up for premium, not only you get the cover, but you get additional services included. Basically, everything that has to do with the pro subscription, including for the supplier, including the data exchange fee, so the transactions, based on how many bookings you cover, all of those are also covered in the percentage cost that you have in order to be able to be covered by premium. And as I mentioned earlier, that's the protection for both the seller and the buyer. So cover, as I said, is global and for all the Travel Ledger participants. You can choose different tiers of cover. So you can decide to cover up to £500,000 or annual claims with a £20,000 excess, or up to £2 million with a £50,000 excess, or you can have higher coverage. In case you were interested in getting higher coverage, get in touch with us, and we can negotiate a specific level, a specific tier with our insurer. Premium, because it also includes the cover, the fees for premium are actually calculated in a slightly different way. So those are actually based on the value of the booking. So 0.44% is the cost for a supplier to sign up to premium, and obviously that's for the bookings that are filed on Travel Ledger. And again, to kind of promote the new product, for the first 5 suppliers that sign up to premium, will offer a reduced fee of 0.4% for the first 12 months. The only charge that is not included in the premium are the TL Pay account charges. Those are kind of banking charges that in all of these things they're excluded. But in general terms, as I said, the whole concept is the premium is a all-encompassing service that includes transaction fees and cover all-in-one cost. Do we have questions or anything? Not at the moment. Okay. Right. So this was premium. Again, more details will be made available. Just wanted to make sure that you have an idea of what is coming. So in summary, Travel Ledger is now open for business with all travel companies, all type of settlements, everywhere in the UK and in the EU. My recommendation is sign up early for Travel Ledger Pay and get your TL Pay account for free. Do it by the end of August. And if you want to be an early adopter of either TL Pay or Premium, get in touch via support, and we will onboard you in July. And most importantly, and you will see actually some emails coming from us over the next couple of weeks, asking you specifically to name name companies. But if you're a buyer and you want to see new suppliers on Travel Ledger, drop them an email or let us know. Now there is no limit for any travel supplier to come on board on Travel Ledger, because with TL Pay, as I said, it's available to any bona fide travel companies in the UK and in Europe for now, and beyond Europe as well. And if you're a seller, want to find out more about Premium, get in touch with your account manager or the support desk. Right. I've been told there are a couple of questions. Yes. So it's fine. Hopefully you can stay another couple of minutes if the questions. Yeah, you could just tell me the question.
So Mike's asking, would there be a hybrid membership option, cover business as pro and non-APTA as premium?
Very good question, Mike. I am in negotiations with the insurance company to see if we can come up with something like that. At the moment, it is an all or nothing approach. So either you cover everything or you don't cover anything. But that's a very fair point. As I said, I'm in discussions with the insurance company to say, because this is a very new product, and the agreement that we have with them is we'll roll it out and try to fine tune it over the next couple of months. And then the other question, if I can see, is how long does it take to complete signing up for TL Pay? Well, obviously if you have all of the information about your company, your company registration numbers and all of that, it should take about 10-15 minutes. As I said, it's a form that asks you your company registration number. It will ask you to also, obviously because of the security aspect, the administrator will have to go through KYC. We'll have to, go through sending a picture, checking your ID, making sure that you are who you say you are. Obviously, you know the amount of money that we move through the platform. We need to make sure that there is the highest level of security. So there's a very simple check to say, are all the company details correct? do we have enough information about the shareholders? Do we, we need to check, for example, that, nobody is on a, sanction list or anything like that. As I said, similar to the way that it happens today, if you open a bank account, that's relatively quick. And then we can, and then there's a processing time in the back end, which might take just a few minutes if it's a very, very straightforward, limited company, with just UK directors, but it will take a little bit longer if you are a larger business, because we're just required by law to actually do these things. I didn't mention it, but TL Pay is actually falls into a financial service. It's registered with the FCA or with the ECB for all the European business. So there's a certain amount of regulations and compliance that ourselves and NIAM, which is our business partner providing the underlying services, have to go through. So we need to do an element of due diligence. But for you, it should take about 10-15 minutes filling all the information. And then, as I said, it can take up to a week for the most complicated ones. Right. If you have any other questions, obviously very happy to answer. And yeah, get in touch. Obviously, at any point, how to contact the support desk, your account manager, and obviously you all have a number of resources online to help you. Yeah. So thank you very much. Unless there's any other question, we're going to close here. And as we said, we'll distribute the recording so that you can make reference back to it, or you can share with your colleagues that didn't have a chance to be here today. Thank you very much.